So a few weeks ago, I got an email from Campfire Publishing asking me if I wanted an advance copy of one of their new sci-fi novels, and I was like, this has got to be a joke, right? Because why would they send one to me? But lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, this turned up. So big thank you to Campfire Editing for sending me this advance copy, because I kind of thought it might be a joke. I want to take this opportunity also to give a big shout out to my mailman, who, upon handing me this parcel, looked at the return address on the actual parcel, looked at the return address on the paperwork, looked me square in the face, and said, "This is from China." Apparently Knoxville, Tennessee is in China. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Learn something new every day with Payana.
And they didn't just send me a book, they sent me all kinds of stuff. I got a bookmark with a little tiny version of the book. It's even like got the blurb and everything. This is so sweet. Keyring and a dog tag. Fridge magnet. A lovely bracelet also with the miniature book on it. And the tote bag, which smells weirdly like chocolate, and I don't know why. I didn't put any chocolate in it, so yeah. Also a little, stay there. Also a little note from Ann Christy, the writer, and a piece of art and a letter, and like, I very much appreciate production that goes like out of their way to just do wonderful things for launching a writer or a band or whatever. Like, this is really cool. So thanks again for that. So this book is The Never-Ending End of the World by Ann Christy. It's a post-apocalyptic novel. So everything that is living in the world has been tied up in what one of the main characters, Coco, refers to as loops. So everybody is stuck in a time loop. So they essentially just like perform the same tasks over and over again. They're like stuck in this static loop, and this just keeps going on and on and on and on and starting again over and over again forever. And the book starts when Coco is a young teen and she is stuck in Manhattan, and she has to negotiate her way through all the looped people in order to get food and stuff, because if she disturbs any of the loops, the people get very violent and try to attack her, and then they just disappear. So she doesn't know where they go, if they just die or what happens to them. So she timed like all the loops so she can like negotiate her way around them without disturbing them. She also has an issue with food, with like food being tied up in people's loops, because if like the food is looped, then it will disappear when the loop starts again. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but like it makes sense. Ann Christy makes it make sense. And eventually she has to leave Manhattan and discovers that there are other people like her that aren't tied up in loops. So there are two societies that are formed. There's the Seekers, which is what Coco is, and their goal is to try and find out why the time looping happened and try and fix it, so like make things go back to normal. And then there's the Chosen, and the Chosen believe that they need to like break the loops and free up land and free up resources, because basically the loops are like taking up resources for all. Because basically the loops are freezing resources for anything living, so animals, trees, people, that aren't tied up in loops. So animals are starving, and it's a big concern because it means that like the animals that are unlooped are then going to die of starvation, and there's going to be nothing left, like all of nature is going to die. So they need to break the loops, even if it means killing the animals and people involved, in order to like allow them to be able to live normally. And these two ideologies oppose each other, because the Seekers believe that like you shouldn't touch the loops, but like the Chosen believe that they just don't have a choice. And like both of those views are valid, I think. Like they both have a good point. So part of the story is told from the point of view of Coco, and the other part so she's a Seeker, and the other part of the story is told from the point of view of Forrest, who is a chosen, and they become friends. They even have a child together, but they can't like live and coexist. Like the two communities don't coexist for some reason, which I think is a bit bizarre in this book. The other thing I find bizarre about this book is, I mean, this kind of bothered me for most of the book, but when it got towards the end, it bothered me a bit less. But I still I want to talk about this point because I think it's odd that there are only two ideologies, if that makes sense. Like, you're either a seeker or a chosen, and you can't be both. Or there's no like other creeds or weird religions or just crazy or just crazy groups of people like would happen in a world where resources are very limited. You will get these gun-happy lunatics who will just band together and take the easy way out, which would be to just shoot all the loopers and take whatever resources they can find, and then each for his own kind of way. You'd probably also have like some crazy religious group going on from the like purpose of control. My favourite example is in Attack on Titan with like the cult that worships the wall, and like they forbid anyone to do anything to the wall, first of all because it's a point of religion, it's a point of worship, but later on they realise that it's more about control, and they know way more than they're letting on, like any religion would. Attack on Titan is one of those few stories where like the religious aspect of it is handled so well. So I did think it was a bit odd that there kind of lacks that form of adversity in this novel. However, as the book goes on and we get towards the end, because like all throughout the novel, we get to live with these characters, to discover how they negotiate their lives in this new world and how they organize their societies and how they have children and how they get resources and how they learn because they don't know anything. They don't know about science or farming or anything. They have to learn all this stuff. They have to find these resources. They have children. They form communities and, colonize other places and make them livable. So all of this is like this. And while all of this is going on, everybody else is still tied up in these time loops. And it's strange because you kind of get to a point where you kind of forget that the time loopers are there. Like, they're there, but they're kind of there in the background. And, like, decades go by. This book takes place over a whole lifetime of these characters. And whereupon this, like, this sort of complacency just comes and establishes itself. And this is what the world's like now. This is normal. And so the seekers aren't seeking a way to fix the looping anymore. They just, like, live. Everybody just lives with it. And that's what turns out to be the enemy. That's what turns out to be the adversity towards the end of this book. And I thought that was really clever. Like a really clever way of telling a story. And I was very, very impressed by Ann Christy's writing on that point. Just the imagination that went into this book. It's quite unlike anything I've ever read before. And it's been a while since I had a book that I just got so into and just went along with it, because it makes the reader complacent as well. You're just like, okay, this is nice, they've got their little communities and stuff, and now they've got children, and they're sorting themselves out, and it's all nice. But it's not, and there's still this, like, terrible thing going on, and the fact that the whole situation, static, calm, peaceful situation, is what actually becomes the enemy. That's super clever of Ann Christy. There's this scene, again, towards the end where they have to go back to New York and they're walking through the suburb. And so here they live in these, like, communities cut off from the world. They have very limited resources. They have very limited communication, means of transport, anything. And they come into suburban New York where everybody has just been completely undisturbed for 3 decades and are still tied into their time loops, just doing normal, ordinary things that people do on a Saturday morning, just mowing their lawns and cutting their hedges and talking to their neighbours and walking their dogs. And it's just, like, that scene hit me so hard of a, like, return to reality. The pacing is brilliant. Another thing I love about Ann Christy's writing, she is super good at writing dialogue. Like, I have rarely seen dialogue that is this good. So like normally with anything that you put in a book, it's like supposed to either teach you something about the characters or move the plot along. Ann Christy does that in a way that just feels so natural. That there will be just this completely casual conversation about, oh yeah, well my husband farts in bed, or this one makes a weird noise when he's eating, or this character snores. Just like little tiny stupid, unimportant, insignificant details that work so well into making these characters so much more likable. And it is kind of, I mean, I want to say it's kind of a low-hanging fruit because, like I said, there's no like evil characters in this novel. They just pretty much get along. They have their own logic and they have their own rules and they get along with each other. So there's kind of no reason to not like them. But just little stuff like this just makes them so much more human, so much more relatable. And I very, very much appreciated that. And again, it's not something that I've come across very often in writing, so big point for that. Ann Christy was a Navy commander, and like her bio reads that she has a background in oceanographic meteorological physics and biochemical marine science and coastal ecosystems. Just that on its own. It's interesting to me how these types of people, like ex-military, people with science degrees, people like children of diplomats, or just people who've travelled a lot and who've been to a lot of different places, writers like Ann Christy or Amélie Nothomb or David Sedaris or S.J. Kincaid, they are the ones that write the best characters and the best stories. It's like, that is interesting to me because they're not necessarily people who have a background, like they were never taught to write, they never went to writing school, they have just a certain experience of life. Like, I don't know what it is, but I when I read her bio, I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense that she would write this kind of book. Like, it makes sense. So I'm very, very happy to own this book and to have read this book. Again, very, very big thank you to Campfire Writing for having sent me this. I very much appreciate it. I guess this makes me an actual genuine booktuber now. I'm getting like editors sending me books to review them. I have entered the space, it's official. So this was a stunning read, it's thoroughly enjoyable, and I very strongly recommend it. The Never-Ending End of the World by Ann Christy. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for watching. Thanks again to Campfire Publishing for sending me this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope you all enjoyed this. And don't hesitate to give me a comment, tell me what you think. Share, subscribe, love. Show this video to your dog. I'm sure they will appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next one. Mwah.